Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Real Estate Lab. We're excited to come at you today, and we're going to talk about the economy, the most exciting topic to date. JJ, Randy, how are you?
Well, I would be better if we had better market updates.
Yeah, or if we had something better to talk about than the economy. JJ, what's up, man?
It was at least a pretty good morning of news. I mean, it wasn't, it's not going to blow us away or anything, but the jobs report came in and it was tame, and that's what we needed. So that's helpful.
Okay. JJ, how are you, man?
I like this stuff. I got an undergrad in economics.
Oh, that's interesting. JJ, I didn't know that.
It's interesting.
Why don't you share this stuff? It's like you pepper little important pieces of information, but only if we like drag it out of you.
But all economics really is they just look at a bunch of numbers and come up with a theory.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's great. That's great. And that ties right into our conversation today. So just so everybody knows sort of what to expect. There was a CEO of Texas National Title. His name is David Tandy. He came and did a presentation I attended yesterday. I wanted to share some of those slides. I know we've got some Austin market numbers available, and then we have a couple articles that altogether we think it should be a pretty fun discussion to have. I am not an economist. Randy, are you an economist? Are you a secret economist?
No.
Okay. We're just realtors here.
But I bring that up because we have a lot of data. I used to work with a lot of data in the past, but it was always in an IT capacity. So it's a little different than in an economic capacity. But I think it's all interpretation.
Right.
Like that's the plan. Okay, so I'm going to pull some of that up first. Or do you want to go through articles? What do you want to go through first?
I like
slides,
the title stuff. They do great presentations for realtors. They see all the transactions. It's good.
Oh, absolutely. So that's really important to note. Title companies get to see a lot of transactions that come through where one realtor might have anywhere from 1 to 20 deals a month. The title companies might have 20 to 100 a month, right? So they get a lot more exposure to the things that are happening in the real estate arena, other than when we have discussions with other realtors, because we do that too. So let me pull this up. Let's see if I can find the pictures.
But generally, again, Austin is very polarizing. It's like it was a top city to move into, and now it's a top city that's having its way in the economy.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's important. So I'm going to start off here with causes of inflation. So I'm not going to read through every single thing, but this one I'm going to take just a little bit longer on, only because I think people need to be able to see it. Now you got to remember, I'm sitting in a building at an angle, taking pictures of a glossy screen. So forgive me for that. But hopefully it's good enough information that it's worth the trouble. Let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit.
Yeah, I would definitely zoom in.
How's that? Is that good?
I would go even more if you can.
More? Yeah. Okay, now you're just playing with me.
Full screen it.
I gotta be careful with this should be. I'll do one more. So obviously the presentation opened up with what are the causes of inflation. So there are a lot of things, supply and demand. We hear that a lot. The increased money supply, right? So we know that there have been a lot of, I think the term is printing money, right? So I'm just going to leave it there. This isn't about politics. This is about what's happening and how we're supposed to interpret the data based on that information. The next thing is rising wages. Because of the cost of labor, people either need to be paid more or there's an issue with the products that are being created. And so, that has to be offset somehow. And then there's other monetary and fiscal policies, like whether or not we're allowed to accept goods from another country, for example, right? That might be cheaper or different quality. That's all really, really, really critical information that cause the inflation. One of the comments that David Tandy said yesterday. So once again, for those of you that are logging in live, David Tandy, CEO of Texas National Title. He is an economist, has been doing this since 1981, and he's seen many market swings. And so he was just delivering this and started with a foundational baseline for us.
And I would say the inflation craze, at least for our local market, was the 2020 year. That's when
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well,
It
we're
could
going to get
affect
to
2
those
years.
numbers. That's actually really interesting information. We're going to get to that number here in a second. Okay, and so then he also talks about the solutions. What do we need to fix this, right? And this is the reason why this is important is because anytime we hear about these Fed meetings and all this stuff that's happening, it's like, well, is this actually going to help or not? So touching on these three, if you slow the economy, then unemployment should increase. One of the issues that we're seeing right now, and pardon me, I know Randy, you were talking about the jobs report had come out. Like that's important because there is like we don't have an increase in unemployment, and that's kind of an issue and why there's been so much inflation. This is what David is explaining, and I'm trying to reinterpret, which kind of makes sense. It's like, oh, okay. Basically saying the Fed doesn't really know what to do because we haven't seen this before.
There was a slight rise of unemployment for that report today, so that was good. It was modest.
Modest. That's what I mean. It's not like indicative of a normal or traditional recession of the past.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So slowing the economy will decrease GDP growth, increase unemployment, and probably create a recession. So that's what the Fed and Congress is trying to do by exercising monetary restraint. Okay.
So I felt like in what I was reading this morning for the jobs report is everybody's celebrating the modest report and saying this should hopefully mean that the Fed won't do their rate hikes for this month. But I just don't know. I don't believe it. I think the Fed will still do it because they want the numbers to be bigger than what came out. I know that it was still an improvement, but people have been saying like, oh, this is it. They won't do it this time, but they keep doing it. So
yeah. So it's funny you say that because he commented on that too, and we're gonna hit this in the slides. There was specifically, we know that rental prices are a lagging indicator. Okay, we know that. Like it takes a year before rents catch up when we're looking at all the numbers. Okay, catch up to what's going on with the economy. Well, because of that, he said another thing that's really important to know is that when the Fed is looking at all of this, all of the GDP information, everything that consumers are spending money on, they look at rent. Well, if rent's always late, they're always looking a year behind, that's why they're having such a hard time discovering what to do next. Because it's old news, old data.
Yeah.
We're looking at data a year ago, right? That's all they have to go off of. So this shows, I believe, so this is GDP rate. One thing I want to point out, which I always thought is really fascinating, I took a ton of notes on this particular thing, data sources. So if you've watched us talk a lot, it's always like, well, where are you getting your data? If you're getting it from Zillow, fine. Where's Zillow getting it from? Okay. If you're getting it from realtor.com, fine. That was sold a long time ago. It's not owned by realtors anymore. So the question is, where are they getting their data from? Open Door, Orchard, like you pick a company, the realtors you're actually talking to and doing business with, where they're getting their data from. So I always look in the bottom left-hand corner because a lot of legitimate presenters and speakers and economists and experts will source the data visibly so that you can go and check it for yourself. And so I like that David did that in every single slide. He also owns a title company. They have to be very accurate with the things that they're saying. So
yeah, I'd recommend people research where they're getting the statistics from, because I know that Zillow, at least maybe my generation or my take on it, I know the Zillows and Redfins are being used a lot, but they're really pulling just from user data, like who's clicking. It's kind of a click thing. It's a good reference point, but you want to look around for other stats.
It's so crazy because I was explaining to a client yesterday about how like Zillow, one, they sell your data. It's a super pretty site, but more importantly, they don't get the same. They don't always get the same information. They pull it from multiple sources. And so people can put their own information on there. So like a great example is if Zillow says, hey, I'll list all the houses for these people that listed 100,000 over price point. Well, if it's 100,000 over price point, do you think it's going to sell? No. But do you think people are taking that into account when they're looking at it? No. They're like, okay, this neighborhood, oh, these houses, oh, they're so expensive. It's like, no, that's just what you're being shown, and it might not be explained. Anyway, that's not the point of this conversation. So
I wanted to make a comment on rising rents. Is now an okay time, or do you have
please,
a
yeah,
slide
let's
into
hit it.
that later? I was listening to an interesting video from a real estate investor that has a good channel, and he said he was talking about rising rents, and that's the leading indicator of where's the housing market going.
Okay.
And that we have rising rents because we have less homeowners happening. And that's going to be because it's way too expensive to build right now, and it's way too expensive to purchase with the high interest rates. And so it shifts those would-be homeowners into being renters, and that the problem is just going to actually, he's predicting, exacerbate because the problem of builders not going forward with their projects and producing supply at this time because it's too costly is going to cause us to have a supply issue next, which will cause the home prices to go up again, along with the still having high interest rates and it being expensive to buy that money. And so the rental prices will continue to go up as well, and kind of shifting into a theory out there of being a renter nation. Right now we're at 65% homeowner, 35% renters. And I guess the last kind of nice peak that we had was during George W. Bush's time, because he did a lot of pressing on homeownership.
Yes.
And the highest that we were at was like 68%. So we're just below that for right now, but there is some cause and concern that we're going to continue to dwindle down from here as homeownership becomes less and less affordable. It was an interesting video.
Yeah, well, but that's like a national stat, though, right?
That's a national topic. Yes, that is not Austin specific.
Let's be super clear about that.
Certainly has affordability issues. So
yeah, everything we're talking about here, at least mostly, is national, which gives us a baseline to have a discussion about Austin.
I have a prediction on what you're saying and what can happen.
Yes.
In Austin regarding rents.
What's your prediction?
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
I've read over the years that Austin, I still feel like it's like a country town. I mean, we got so much land compared to like super major cities, but we are capable of building. Actually, Austin also does have building restrictions, but there could be a lot of supply building, and there's definitely a lot of apartment complexes. I've seen that. So even though there's more people that can't afford to purchase, which will still probably be relevant, I think the rents are going to go down because supply is going to slowly go up, but renters are just going to be spread out more, causing more rental competition, so to speak.
That's interesting. So when you're talking about the apartments that you're noticing getting built, are you talking about central Austin area? Or are you talking about all over? You're noticing that?
I think from the articles I've read, it's kind of a greater Austin area thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming up like anthills. They're kind of everywhere.
They are. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, and that I've recently read a few articles talking about how homeownership is no longer the American dream for young people. Specifically because of the unaffordability. They're like, well, if I can't afford it, why is that a goal? Why don't I just focus on things that I can control today?
Wow.
Like I know it's like a weird perception, right?
You got to pay anyway, and it can possibly be your only investment that you make. If you never get to the point of having IRAs or other types of stock and investments or college funds, like at least that housing payment that you must make every month goes back to you.
Listen,
when you're trying to retire and go on cruises.
you're preaching to the choir. I'm just saying this is the sentiment for people that feel defeated due to how unaffordable they consider things to be based on their current position in the world.
It's just so important that we don't give up. So, but I definitely understand the feeling of defeat. I mean, it's scary to think about like trying to get out there and buy, with how high the cost can be at this time. It's just
what's going to happen is those people, given the right elements, are going to find a good job in an affordable place, and that's going to be the next place to pop.
Oh yeah. Well, so let's keep going through this. We're running thin on time. I want to hit the comments. So John says, yes, the gang is back. Thank you, John. We've all been the market's different, right? So we've all been kind of like busy scrambling to take care of this and take care of that and just make sure that we are servicing people the way we need to service people. So thank you for your patience.
We're scrambling.
Thank you for your patience in sticking with us and coming back and watching. So this is funny. They'll keep raising rates until we reach the primaries. I think we talk about that a lot. Every time there's an election year, it absolutely affects and this is source data, statistical data. You can go find this. I don't know where it is right now, but I've seen this many times. You can tell that there's been a change in the amount of homes bought and sold in most areas across the United States based on what they presume will happen. And a lot of it's due to like fear or FOMO of who they think's being elected.
That could be a podcast.
Local and national. So Mark says no primaries elections will be canceled next year due to rain. Yeah.
Yeah, that made me laugh when I saw that.
You know what? I'm not trying to be an anarchist, but wiping the slate clean could be interesting. It could be an interesting approach and starting from scratch.
Mark K, thanks. Mark K did the yes.
Yeah, I know. I was getting there. I had to save that one,
there
man.
We go.
This is awesome. So Mark, thank you so much. We love doing this. And yes, we need to go out to coffee, hang out. We just, man, we're buckling down, taking care of things. You know?
Cheers. Thank you, Mark K.
We appreciate you, all of you, for showing up, watching, contributing, and being part of our journey in this tumultuous real estate career. So thank you so much. However we can help, we're happy to do so.
Also, those Airbnb units are going to turn into long-term rental units.
Oh, that's a whole discussion too.
Yeah.
So let's look at this. So the GDP rate, we noticed that there's been a climb from January to July. But if you look at July 2021,
a lot of money floating around.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It was, was it actual money?
Yeah, right.
It's going away now. I know that much.
That's what because think about it. There was a lot of crypto. There was a lot of hidden stuff. But was it like assets?
Where's all the Bitcoin traders at? What happened to y'all?
Oh, they're around. Oh, Bitcoin has been popping, man.
It seemed kind of loud in these
it's a
years,
secret world.
You know what I mean?
I think what it is you can't cry wolf anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a trader, like I still play the game, right? And not a trade, but like I still pay attention to that very closely.
But I just
want to say something and then somebody gets all mad about it. Or
like, during those years, it was just like I'm a social media addict. I made this much money on Bitcoin. My house, you know, appreciated. So much money's floating around.
Well, people were doing that with everything. Cars, selling cars for double the amount, selling houses for double the amount, like all of that sort of stuff. Right?
AMC. Was it AMC?
AMC. Oh, they just released a movie on Netflix about that.
Nice.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, and their AMC just announced they're going to start paying dividends.
See? There's some money out there.
Genius moves, big money moves. All right, so tenant owner occupied.
This is national.
No.
Bureau of Economics.
Correct. Yeah, this particular chart is all national.
Okay. Consumer Price Index. Oh yeah.
And so you see from the 80s all the way up to now.
Those
you see how it
rising
spiked like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What a
so
time.
People were just spending more on rent.
Mm-hmm. That's dramatic.
It's very dramatic. Well, and that's the point. All of these things are dramatic. So one thing that's really important here, he's talking about Austin specifically. He's talking normally we do 4 to 6% annual appreciation, except we had this crazy spike. Do you know what our median price point is today? Approximate.
Like Round Rock, Austin MSA.
Yeah, Round Rock, Austin MSA.
462.
Okay, where is that on this chart? Right here.
I can't see. Ian, tell us.
Oh, sorry.
It's above that.
It's not, but it's like approximately right here.
Okay.
Linear.
Right. So the point that he's trying to make here is that over a rolling 15 months, not 12 months, just because it throws the date off a little bit. And he also he says over 30 months. So from 15 months, January 21st to April 2022, you have a 42% increase. And then you have a decline from May 2022 to July 2023, down 17%. So overall, over the 30 months that we're talking about, we still have an appreciation that is in line with our standard growth path.
Oh,
So we're not like people that bought houses in 2020 didn't lose money. The people that are losing money based on this information were the ones that bought in 2021, 2022,
Right.
that were forced to sell unexpectedly or sold based on hype or something like that. Not people that are holding, right? Because you're still appreciating depending on what you paid and all of the variables intact, right? And if
You're
you don't
saying
have
that they purchased in 2021, 2022, and then had to sell quickly after that. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, those are the people that are
lost equity,
might be hurting a little bit. But it also depends, because maybe they traded up, or maybe they went lateral, or maybe they went elsewhere.
And that would most likely be the case historically anyways. I mean, it's always a risky move to buy such a large asset and to then need to sell it so quickly. Nobody wants to do that. It was only an interesting play from like 2019 to 2021 where you could actually make money that quickly.
Yeah.
So the speculators got in on that. So that's really interesting.
Well,
and by the way, this stat came from Texas A&M. I'm a Longhorn, but
huge.
The Texas A&M Real Estate Center has a ton of great statistics.
That's probably where I get most of my stuff. I do want to point out here that while you have this for the Austin market, hold on, sorry, there were a couple things. So so first, John says his is on the ledger, ready to be sold. That's interesting, right? He's put 455. Do you think that people? How long do you think before people should be letting go of their houses? I guess is my next question off of this. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I could say this on behalf of my sellers. If you're lowballing my sellers, and I'm saying lowballing because you're going under that trajectory, that's, to me, it's a little ridiculous. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the closing prices are. But that's like a good way to gauge what's normal since 1990.
So yes. So the other thing that's really important about this, I remembered what I wanted to say before. The other thing that's really important to consider with this is when you have your Zillow instant offers and your Orchard and your, what is it called? Open Door instant, like all of these iBuyer situations, this screwed everyone up. Like you cannot say it any other way. It really manipulated the numbers and was a big proponent of the
you're talking about the close prices
issue.
At what point in the market, Ian, do you feel that way? Whenever we were really hot and they could offer over what was
absolutely.
Yeah,
you're saying the iBuyer market inflated. They speculated, bought high, and took everyone's investor money to do that.
Correct.
Yes, that's why Zillow fell out of
their
company.
We're in a capitalistic society. I understand. Let's make profit because that is the point of business. However, if you're playing the game, you have to be prepared to lose. And that's what happens to a lot of people who weren't really prepared to play.
Yeah. I mean, I overpaid for an investment in Florida in recent years.
So John says, thankfully we bought in November 22 with a super low interest rate. Awesome. Good for you, man. Very cool. I just want to put this back on the screen one more time. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh man, it's awesome.
Yeah, so I would say, take 5% appreciation, 4 to 6% appreciation from 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
And that's like a healthy.
Right. So this is exactly what he was showing. If we stayed on our path and you say like traditionally about 6% annually. Now this is across all the zones because some places in Austin appreciate more or less, right? A couple nights ago, we were doing a live stream and we were talking about how like Buda appreciated way differently than Cedar Park or Lago or Hutto or, so, but as a whole, Austin in 2021, median, 2022, median, 2023. Actual appreciation in December. So the numbers didn't go far off. This is from December, is where it would be if we would have gone the normal appreciation route. So we're really close. I think we're right there. Right? Right at this number.
The thought that comes to mind when I look at this is relief at first, of course.
Yes.
But also a really interesting podcast that's out right now, The Growth Machine. Have either of you tapped into that at all?
Mm-mm.
It's
No. Was it a book first?
It's KUT's podcast. They did an incredible job talking about how it says how Austin engineered their housing market, and it goes all the way back to, you know, the 1920s, doing very interesting, detailed work of how the city and votes and whatnot led us to appreciating way too fast for the last 10 to 15 years. And also kind of making the city unaffordable regardless of what we did in, you know, the 2020 times. So I don't know. That. It's just kind of it's a really interesting podcast, and I encourage anybody living in Austin to give it a listen for sure. But it is good to know that we're getting back. We can maybe try to erase what happened in 2020 because nobody needs that.
Hold on. So this thing, it's saying that's what's closing and it's under the trajectory.
Well, so this is the actual year to date.
Oh, that's actual or the projected. Oh,
and then this is showing how it should be rising based on what it would be if there was never any spike.
Cool.
Okay. So if you look at normal appreciation annually, we're looking at a 6% appreciation for the houses, which means you divide it, and that would be 0.5% monthly. And he's saying if we were to go up 0.5% monthly, this is where our this highlight is where we would have ended anyway. If COVID never happened, this is where we would be. So the fact that we're higher means we're still at a surplus.
Yeah, that's good. That's interesting information. It sounds like it was a good meeting.
It was a very solid meeting.
I feel like comps are legit now then.
Yeah, absolutely. But you still have people that are pricing it at this.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
I feel so bad for some sellers out there when I'm going through listings for my buyers and just like, you're getting such bad advice. This is not going to work.
It's tough. You have to know what you're doing.
Oof.
I think I was taking pictures when he was doing this slide, but he was talking about the actual rate locks, people locking in long-term rates. Obviously, that's declining because rates are getting higher, but we do know that they're up from last week or the week before. You can see little spikes here and there. Anytime there's a slight drop, people are locking rates. But this also goes to show, what do you think is going to happen if rates decline again? You know, like you just look at the numbers, right? It's going to go right back up because it's specifically to lock that rate. We're not talking about how many people are excited to buy a home or anything like that. We're just talking about when are people locking rates, which are generally new builds, but that's a conversation. Okay.
Look at that one more.
Yeah. And if anybody needs these slides, just hit us up. We all have our handles on Instagram or our websites, and you can just reach out to us and we can get you these. Home price growth rates, which is interesting. This one's a little more to dissect, but we've seen
blue is a negative.
Yeah, blue is negative, and we see where Austin is right now. Yeah. But again, that's based on what? Year over year. It's based on last year's numbers. We just saw that we're still ahead, all things considered, in a 30-month trajectory.
Hey, look, we're still number one in the country regarding
that's true
highest negative growth rate.
There's a statewide theory going on that Texas is going to experience a bit of an exodus, both for how hot it's been, combined with just the heavy political news that happened for the past year. So lots of people that came in with certain expectations are now going to pack up and leave from all that. So I wonder, how much that will affect Austin, because we certainly took in that crowd.
How many people moved and didn't think that politics played a role in where they lived?
Oh yeah, I don't even know. Don't you get that conversation?
Originally, I thought that was kind of funny. I was like, no, everybody has to understand that, right? And then I realized how many people don't understand that.
It's people, yeah.
At work, I feel like I put on this like political strategist hat sometimes. They bombard me with these questions, and I'm like, what?
Okay, so 1 month change in home prices This is kind of interesting, right? Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Where are we at? Is this us?
Probably.
Yeah, it is.
It feels like that.
Again. The most red.
The only arrow on the map.
This has been a fun roller coaster ride in Austin these past few years.
Okay. Austin vacancies. This is also really important. You can get this data off of CoStar, and this is obviously current information, well, based on August. So it's always, a month late because they have to close out the month. But vacancy rates. So we did see an increase up to 12%, but it's dropping back down a little bit. And that doesn't show what our numbers are, like what people are making for their offices. This just shows that they're not staying empty. The commercial properties.
But they're going to peak in the next few years.
Why do you think that? Why do you think they haven't already peaked?
Well, because it's showing that's in the future years, right?
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes. So 2023 is here, and this is the planned trajectory. I don't know where this comes from. It has to be from lease ends.
Yeah, I do appreciate the title company for pulling CoStar. Like they're pulling the right source, but
that's also speculation, right? So the lease might end,
right, for CoStar.
But if there's more units being built or less units being built, and then they're just going with what they know.
Well, I think what's going to happen is like office is going to suck, right? No one's going to stay there, and then the investors are going to come in, repurpose the building, and then take it.
Here's my issue with this chart. So if you look at anything before 2023, everything's been a sharp up and down, right? Very steep, mostly steep, peaks and valleys. This is a curve. So something's off here.
It's been my understanding that mortgage-backed securities for the commercial sector, they're all coming due in the next year. And that's a big concern, right? Because it's all vacant and the banks don't want them, but they're going to take them anyway because there's nowhere
this is like
it's a very big problem.
He talks about those. I believe he talks about those.
What I see here is an investor opportunity. Like there's going to be a huge vacancy in commercial.
Yep.
You could grab it, repurpose it.
Well, I don't know about huge. That means like right now, if you invested in commercial, you have a little bit of worry. You have a little bit of time before the vacancy.
The vacancy is at an all-time high from 2007.
Right. So investing in commercial is what you're saying. Picking up some properties is the opportunity. Yeah.
So there's going to be a price adjustment there, and then, you got to do something with the property though.
You got to do something.
Kind of like how Highland Mall turned into ACC.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's vibing over there. It's great.
That's going to be.
Love that area.
That's cool. It's cool. There's like
what the heck happened here? It's like seriously like a year away because during COVID, like I didn't go down there a whole lot. Now I'm like, oh my goodness, cool. All right, so wage growth tracker. So this is obviously interesting. People started making a lot of money, and then they stopped making a lot of money. But this is wages, not assets, right? So hopefully the people that made these wages were able to secure some assets like real estate, right? Or, this is not assets or investments. These are actual income. So that's kind of interesting to see. Where do you think it's going from here? So if that's 2023, where do you think 2024 is going to end up?
According to that jobs report, it's a turtle. A turtle pace.
Turtle? That did not look like a turtle to me. I'm just saying. Okay, unemployment rate.
It's coming down, but they wanted to come down for inflation, right?
That's exactly what they wanted. No. They were saying that unemployment going up brings inflation down. Right.
It's always like this double negative thing with unemployment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like here, 5.2, and you got to think, like you always got to think about like who's in office while this is happening, but who was in office that caused this to happen, or what was happening in the world that started the trend change.
Yeah, that's the thing about economics. It's
It's-
hard. It's a social science, so you
It is a
socially have
social
to
science.
figure it out.
Okay, so this is interesting, and I think this goes back to what you were talking about, Randy. So Fed, like this is really important. Fed hikes usually result in a recession as they're hiking them, and they're showing these green dots are like the outlier situations. I forget what he told me with each one. I think this one was it. This one that's Vietnam. This one was .com, and this one was some housing one, something major. So each one was like kind of an outlier, but a huge catalyst. So I think the point of this was to show that we need something like that. Actually, I was having a conversation with a friend about this. He was saying we need something like that to cause an adjustment, because right now we went down. It doesn't go any further over.
By the way, if you look, if you
And we're going back
draw
up
it
right
out historically, the average is about where we're at because you got those highs and you have lows.
Oh yeah, like look. So in 1980, where you were at 18% interest rates,
Yeah.
and I know everybody's going to go in. Well, houses were only 80,000. Yeah, but that's why you look at the like economically adjusted based on what the wages were at the time. And I'm not saying it's better. It's in fact, it's far worse still. But it is important to see that information. See that data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Treasury spikes or dips, and then recession indicators. So I think the point here is that every time the Treasury dips down has been a recession of sorts, and we're there. So even if, like, I think most people know this, but it's just good to see where we are in the trend and in the data. Do we think it'll drop as far as 1980? Obviously, it's different circumstances.
And I would say talk to your lender. My lender tends to talk about the Treasury a lot.
Yeah. So I really liked this one. This is CEOs and their personal outlook on the recession and the way things are going. And I know, I was like, oh, okay. Now, obviously, I want to go see who's part of this business council, which CEOs are they reaching out to? But I'm assuming that it's probably the Fortune. My guess would be the top 100 Fortune 100 companies, something like that in the S&P.
Movers and shakers of sorts.
Yeah. So over the next 12 to 18, what are they preparing for? Now, the other thing is, are a lot of them thinking similarly because they talk, because they all read the same thing, right? Like that's the kind of stuff that you will never know.
This whole year.
Say it again?
They were all wrong this whole year because they kept saying
that was the other thing.
So
I think that was his opening statement. He said everybody who has been studying economy has been wrong with what the Fed's been going to do.
The Fed is doing their own thing.
Yes.
So like I'm 50-50. Like I would love for the people that know what they're talking about and say 85% for sure, just mild. I would love that. But I'm also 50% of like it's going to be a deep U.S. recession. It's coming.
Well, so that's why I like that. Like there's so few few leaders in these big companies. I almost said big pharma. I don't know why, but in these like really big companies that are saying that they think there's going to be a deep recession. Most of them are remaining optimistic.
That's good.
With limited global spillover, which means they're not really worried what's happening in China with their market going down or Russia.
It's something because it's not no U.S. recession. It's a brief and shallow.
Correct.
Whatever that means.
But we're there. Is my point. We're already at shallow.
Yeah.
And we're already at brief. So that's kind of my point here.
It keeps going.
What date with this? 12, 18 months.
And none of these clips are long enough where we can actually listen to him talk. They're just clips for me to make videos, right? Okay, job openings. So this is what's probably the most confusing thing to the Fed. Like we talked about unemployment, and we're sitting here stable. Look at number of unemployed right here, number of jobs. We have so few people unemployed. We don't have enough people to fill the jobs. The problem is we don't have either A, enough skill, or B, enough people that are willing to take the wages that are being offered.
I'm curious how they clock all these numbers in. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis came up with these.
Well, I think you have a lot of people that are still sitting on a lot of equity or something that they've earned, maybe some Bitcoin, right? You have a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'm not going to take a job, move halfway across the country and make half the money.
Isn't there some sort of theory going on too that the digital world is providing not employment opportunities, but income opportunities? And so then the
100%.
basic job of, being a cashier at Target is like, that's where a lot of those openings are too. It's like, nobody's going to go make $14 an hour whenever I can just do something online.
Yeah.
And make more.
I've been using remote assistants more now than before.
Yeah, I've got a lot of VAs, a lot of remote assistants. I have, we talk about this, but multiple. You can't rely on just one thing. I feel like, right? And if you are, you better hope that thing is loyal to you.
Mm-hmm.
But in most cases, it's not, right? I think I've told you guys the story of me having to walk my bosses out in the past, and it's like they've given their entire lives to these corporations, and then I'm sitting here at 20 years old, like, hey, okay, I'll help you carry your box out. Wait, what's happening?
Wow.
Yeah.
So
there's flexibility now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, where are we going to get the workers from? Right now, if you haven't started messing with AI related stuff, anything, you can do so much right now. And that's right now. It's not even that good. Like, it's pretty good, but man, imagine when self-driving cars are actually driving themselves. No intervention from humans. Give it a year. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be crazy. All these drivers, all these truck drivers, all these limo drivers, like all these people, boom, gone, out of a job. And right now, we can't fill the jobs.
This is interesting. This is a bit of a tangent, but one of the articles I pulled up was Grant Cardone, however you feel about him, did this like live video where he asked AI, like a chat bot, what are the 10 best markets for investing in rental real estate in America?
Yes, excellent. Yeah, okay.
And the AI responded, the best markets for investing in real estate in America depends on these factors: population growth, job opportunities, rental demand. And then he was agreeing with other cities, but when AI listed Austin, Grant Cardone said, Austin, Texas is one of the worst markets to be in right now. Of all the markets in America, is probably the most overbuilt.
See, there are a lot of issues with that, right? So you got to go on when the source data was released, because most people are still operating on source data that's 2 years old. And
AI?
Yeah. So,
possibly, right?
So like if let's say it's Chat GPT, right? If you're using 3.5, it's older data. If you're using 4.0, it's more current data.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already one issue. The second issue is it's based on the whole culmination of conversations on the internet. And so if most people are saying, oh, I lost my butt in Austin. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean everybody did. It doesn't mean it's not a good city to invest in. It means that a lot of people made bad decisions because of hearsay. Right. And yet, and it states that right away. Like, that's like going on Wikipedia and looking up something. You don't ever, like, a title company is not going to use Wikipedia as a source for anything.
Speaking of which,
it's just too open.
Back to AI, the jobs are going to go to AI. Like, everything has to be effectively segmented.
It gets trained. I think that's the issue. People don't understand. I mean, like right now, it's in its infancy. 10 years from now, this world will not look the same. Our jobs will not be the same. Our incomes will not be the same. I'm not, it's just, it's a little scary, but it's a little exciting because that means there's opportunity. Functional opportunity to level the playing field. People that didn't make money can make a lot of money. People that made a lot of money now have to actually learn different skills and adapt.
You gotta do an AI podcast next time. That'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah. All right. So, I know we're hitting some time here. So, recorded recessions. So, 2008, 2001, 1990, and the length of time they took.
Okay. Really, I was like, what is that number?
So, I want to say months. Let's go with months. I could be wrong, but
number of recessions.
Let's go with consecutive months. So 1973, 16 months.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. 2020, 2 months, and then all of a sudden, whoo, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There goes the 2008 recession.
Yep. Yeah, that one took a long time. Okay. This is one of my favorite websites. It's Visual Capitalist.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I've seen that one.
they take a lot of data and then they turn it into something that you can see. Like the fact that while it shows that China, their GDP is almost as much as ours, what they don't show is how much of ours is tied up into China. But then it does also show how much input, like how much GDP we have compared to these other places like Italy, Brazil. I thought Brazil would have a little more for whatever reason, but then you got to think, well, what are they actually selling to the rest of the world? Right? Coffee, a lot of coffee. I don't know the answers to this, but you can break that down and find out like what are their big imports and exports. So it's just cool to see this. South Korea rather, Japan. So isn't Japan steel? Yeah. So it's cool to see that. Like who is doing what and where. He also talks about the tax revenue of 5 trillion. And so if for some reason we didn't make GDP, what do you think they have to do? Got to increase our taxes. Right? And I think that's like kind of part of the conversation.
Or
like,
fix something in government on spending. But
right.
yeah.
Or that. Those are your options. Those are your options, right? That's the same thing when we're talking to clients about listing a home. What can you change? You can change the price. Can you change the location? No, you can't change the location. Can you change the insides and the outsides, like the functionality of your house? Maybe. That's going to cost you a lot. Most of the time, you're not going to change anything, right? And so you have to change the price, and that's basically where we're at. This talks about interest, just interest going up over the years, cost to hold the interest for all the debt that we owe, and it's not going down. Okay. Another conversation. This one was about other companies. So China and Russia and how they're not, or most economists are not specifically worried about what's going on here, but it is good to pay attention to the stuff that's going on here. They just think that the value of the yuan and the ruble, is it Russia? Is ruble? Yeah, ruble. Yeah, will end up being nothing. Like it's nothing now, but the trade might increase. What is it? 80 times in a few months. That was in 2022, and so you can keep track of that. But they're not worried about that, like overtaking the U.S. dollar or anything like that. That was the point of this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was the overall tone of the meeting, Ian? Like what was the message?
Here you go. Conclusion. What will affect mortgage rates going forward? Yeah. Treasury note, Fed funds rate increases. So they think they're going to pause and hold the rate right now. And then it'll reduce. Because we've already had the increases. Okay. Core inflation rates needs to hit 2%. I forget where we were on those numbers, but I think we're getting close, if not there. The risk of recession, mild. So they think by mild or soft landing, which means like we're already kind of plateaued. They think by the end of 2024 is kind of like the worst of it, what they're saying. And then it'll turn back around. So, but in that just means the holdout right now, I think, is related to employment. Because right now our employment numbers are good. So companies are letting people go a lot slower. So until they hit that, and again, this is what he's saying. I don't know this. I don't know how companies, what their thought processes are. We can only look and see what the leaders of these companies are saying. So they have confidence that they don't need to let people go. And so that doesn't help us with our recession situation, because the Fed's looking at our unemployment rates and they look good. So it's kind of a catch-22. And then international stability. As long as the US dollar stays as the world reserve currency, we've got zero issues. They're not worried about China. They're not worried about Russia. There's really nobody else even in play here, other than maybe crypto. There might be a sneak attack on in crypto being a replacement for US currency, which would change everything. Predicted treasury. Sorry, I'm just, and he was doing this live as well. He just pulled up Yahoo Finance and kind of showed like what our treasury. So this is the ticker if you need to look for it on Yahoo Finance, and it shows what it is like live, like what the treasury is at live. So just super good information. Oh, and mortgage rates. Same thing with mortgage rates. Like we see where they are. We see how they've spiked up. They're like way up here right now. Just more information that you can. He uses Mortgage News Daily for the title company.
It's an improvement from just a week ago. That Mortgage News Daily was showing 7.4. So
yeah.
Good.
So I know we've been on for a minute. Do you guys still have just a minute to answer John's questions at the very least?
Well, yes, of course.
Okay, cool. So John says has to go up. I think he posted that a while ago, like 20 minutes ago. So yeah, I mean, not everything, but most things have to come back up. The question is always when. And according to these charts, it looks like by the end of 2024 is when the majority of leaders have confidence that we'll already be back on the bell curve. Up. All right. One of the things that I did ask, because Aaron, who's usually on this, on your commenting and stuff, he asked about student loans. Do we think that's going to be a problem? So David, he said, any good bank has been preparing for that for 6 months or longer. So he doesn't think it's going to be as much of a problem as people think. Now,
they've always been looking into whether you have student debt or not, even when it was in forbearance.
Right. But what they're saying is if forbearance ends, if you just have to pay it all back, are people just not going to buy houses?
It could mentally affect people banks aside, just like the individual themselves, for sure.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of David's point. He's like, maybe a little bit, but I don't see it being a big turn. And so the next question John asked is, where do you think median price will be for Austin in about 2 years if rates drop back down closer to 5? So I do think they'll drop back down closer to 5. What do you guys think about? What do you two think about that?
I think that inflation was too crazy. 5 would maybe high 5s. I don't know if we're gonna see 5.
Well, if we do the 5% average again, then that puts us at just about 500,000 in 2 years.
JJ, you think so?
If you wanted to play the 5% interest rate game, well, one, I don't think it's going to happen. There's so much unaffordability. Well, we're also in Austin. I don't know how this looks in the country, but there's some unaffordability, steep price points happening in Greater Austin. But a reference point, you could do the math, see what happens when your interest is lower and how much you could pay. So you would keep payments fixed and then see what happens to the price point with lower interest rates. Does that make sense? I can't do the math, but that's a reference point to see how much the prices would go up on the house. Because if your interest rate's lower, you could actually keep a similar payment to what's going on nowadays.
The 5% average that we were running before COVID was also during a time like what I was mentioning from that Growth Machine podcast, when Austin was having the appreciation was a little too fast. So, and there's a big push by the city right now to increase that density and to kind of reverse that mistake. Some people find it to be a mistake. And so perhaps, the city's plans and this big push about urban density could help soften that 5% growth per year. I don't know. That's the whole point of what they're working on, though, is to help make Austin more affordable. So we'll see if their plan works.
So I think we're going to be above 500 for median.
If it goes to 5%, for sure.
Yeah. If it hits 5%,
Way
for
above.
a few reasons. So one, a lot of the stuff that he was still pointing to says that we still have low inventory. So even if we have more apartments and people are living in apartments, when homes sell, they're still going to sell for a good price, right? So the average price can still increase. And then you have a lot of new builds that are offering incentives, but they're offering incentives instead of changing the sales price in a lot of cases, right? So if they're making the sales price, let's say it's a $600,000 house, they're not making it $500,000 in most cases. They're making it, maybe $590,000, and then they're like, but we'll give you $30,000 in incentives. So that keeps the sales price high. Whether or not that's inflated is irrelevant. He's just asking, what do you think the median is going to be?
And I'm also factoring in optimism on the tech economy still.
Oh yeah,
growing here.
Well, so a lot of the tech jobs, while we have lost a lot, they haven't been massive hits on our economy. What do you think?
Go ahead.
I haven't looked too closely, but when I do, listing work in other areas or talk to buyers or host open houses, there's tech people all over the place. Like in Northwest Austin. I don't know the stats, but they're definitely bullish on tech.
I wanted to kind of circle back too, because the city plans for higher density is not just more apartments. I mean, it's zone changes, and dividing those lots up and creating more single family units, or the condo regimes where they're sharing lots and splitting lots too. So
that would be huge.
Going that direction too.
That would be huge. I wonder if the city ends up voting or federal ends up voting to remove zoning laws, this was another part of the conversation, and just specifically for ADUs, that can change everything that we thought we knew, right?
They did make a change in this past year too, where they changed a whole bunch of area that was just zoned for commercial can be actually residential now too. So I mean, there's changes like that have happened. It's interesting. There's a lot changing in the landscape of the Austin housing market.
Which right now, if builders are like, well, we don't have to build, then it's not going to be realized for another year or two. And then people are gonna be like, what's happening? Why is everything being gobbled up?
Yeah.
I seen a news article about Houston changing a lot of zoning for what was zoned for duplex. They're allowing fourplex development.
Oh yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Houston is notorious for having a huge lack of zoning. They just let people do whatever they want.
It is actually the wild, wild west. Yeah. They're like, just do whatever. Are you going to pay us for it? Fine, do it.
Exactly.
They don't care. Because when you have like a 3.7% property tax rate, they don't care. That's awesome. Y'all have something you want to share? I know I talked a lot. I think the economic thing was sparse. There was a lot of information there.
No, it was good information. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Listen, it wasn't me. It was David from TNT. Like he laid it on us. It hurt. It hurt a little bit, but then it felt better.
Wealth. I think my takeaway is like I sense a correction and it's correcting properly. And I could see, based off of what we talked about, how you should offer, what you expect to get accepted as an offer or as a seller. And it's going to be a little rocky for the next year or so. And, we'll coast through.
My question for Randy is, do you think people should sell right now?
Yes. If it just heavily depends on your personal situation. So if you need to go, you don't linger and wait and hoping that next year will be better. Just go ahead and do it now. I don't think that there's a promised land waiting for us next spring. So
Yes,
just
promised
do it
land.
specifically based off of your personal needs. And if you're too nervous to do it right now and you don't necessarily need to do it right now, and so you would rather just wait until a spring market, then that's fine too. But I just don't think that there's some sort of, better. The grass is not necessarily greener on the other side. So if you need to sell now, then just do that.
Yeah.
There's, strategies to put in place for that.
Right.
Yeah. Always let your personal scenario, your personal financial advisor, your realtor, your lender, like your family, kind of dictate the direction that you think you want to go. But in many cases, if somebody were to ask me that question, I would ask, like, what's the need? Like, what's your motivation for needing to move? And if your motivation's high, then waiting isn't going to do you. I don't see waiting doing you a whole lot of good. It's kind of where I'm at with it. At least for another year and a half.
Yeah.
Because right now we're still like homes that are sitting on the market they're all doing that. Like, it's not like your home is special in most cases. Even if you do all the best stuff to it, it's hard to command much more because people still have options because the unemployment hasn't gone down. I use air quotes. People still have money that they're living off of. So it's interesting. Yeah.
I agree.
And I think come 2025, and we've talked about this a few times too, once people start seeing what they think is the light, then everybody's going to start selling, and then you're just going to have too much competition, and we're going to be still in this situation where now you just have all these houses that are listed and everybody's competing with everybody like they are right now. And you end up with the same result.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. See you again real soon. And thank y'all for showing up.
Yeah.
See y'all next time.
And
Thank you.
educating. See ya. Bye.